The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between stars like a metal mountain made of lights and steel, its countless windows glowing against the endless black of space where 12 different alien races had built their greatest achievement together. Commander Taman stood in the central command chamber looking out through the great window at the swirling colors of distant galaxies, while his chrome-like skin reflected the soft blue lights that filled the room around him. His people, the Zephyrians, had evolved on a world where thoughts could travel from mind to mind without words. And now he felt the worried thoughts of thousands of beings pressing against his consciousness like waves against a shore. The emergency session had been called by the High Council after their long-range sensors detected something that should not exist in the Outer Rim territories, where primitive worlds spun quietly around young stars. Energy readings that spoke of technology far beyond what any backwater planet should possess had been coming from a small blue world in what the star charts called the Sol System Hygiene, moved through the chamber like living crystal, her silicon-based form catching and bending light in ways that hurt to look at directly, while her mind processed thousands of calculations every second as she analyzed the data streams flowing through the station's quantum networks. She had studied the readings for weeks now, and each new piece of information made less sense than the last. The blue planet called Earth orbited a yellow star that burned with ordinary fire and sent ordinary light across space to warm worlds that should hold nothing more interesting than rocks and maybe simple life forms crawling in shallow seas. But the energy signatures coming from this Earth spoke of power sources that could light up entire star systems and technologies that the Confederation itself had only dreamed of building. Young Wu Bin paced near the tactical displays where holographic representations of star systems rotated slowly in mid-air, his Vorthon physiology making him appear almost human, except for the silver eyes that could see across multiple dimensions and the way his movements seemed to blur at the edges as if he existed in several places at once. He had volunteered for this mission because he wanted to prove himself worthy of joining the elite scout corps that explored the dangerous edges of known space. The High Council chamber filled with representatives from all 12 member species, as ancient beings called ethereals floated above the assembly like living clouds of energy and light. They had existed since before most stars were born, and their wisdom guided the Confederation through countless crises, but even they seemed troubled by what their sensors had found in the distant Sol system. Admiral Kethvar of the warrior race, called Heptons, stood at attention beside his massive weapon harness while his forearms crossed over his chest in the traditional gesture of readiness. His people had conquered half their home galaxy before joining the Confederation, and he understood better than most what kinds of energy readings came from worlds that had learned to split atoms and bend space-time to their will. The data continued to flow across every screen and display as technicians from different worlds worked together to make sense of readings that defied their understanding of how primitive civilizations should develop. Radio signals that carried complex mathematical proofs mixed with entertainment broadcasts about something called reality television, while deep space sensors detected gravitational anomalies that suggested the planet might be artificially maintaining its orbit around its star. Hygiene processed the information faster than any organic mind could follow, and her crystalline form shifted colors as different thoughts moved through her consciousness like light through a prism. She had calculated over 40,000 possible explanations for what they were seeing, but none of them made sense when applied to a world that should barely have discovered fire, according to their models of planetary development. The energy readings showed power generation on a scale that required either massive fusion reactors or something even more advanced, while electromagnetic signatures suggested global communication networks that spanned the entire planet and reached out into space, with sophisticated satellite arrays. But visual observations showed cities made of primitive materials and transportation systems that still burned chemical fuels to move people from place to place. Tamin felt the collective confusion of the assembled minds as telepathic species shared their thoughts and theories while non-telepathic races contributed through quantum communication links that connected every consciousness in the chamber into a vast thinking network. The contradiction between what they observed and what they measured had become impossible to ignore. The ethereals spoke without words, as their thoughts flowed directly into every mind present, like warm light carrying meaning across the darkness. They reminded the assembly that throughout galactic history, many civilizations had hidden their true nature behind facades of primitiveness to avoid attracting the attention of more advanced powers. But none had ever maintained such a perfect deception across an entire planet. For what appeared to be thousands of years, Wubin studied the tactical implications as his multidimensional sight let him see probability streams and potential outcomes, flowing around the chamber like colored ribbons in a cosmic wind. Every scenario his people could calculate suggested that approaching this Earth without proper intelligence would result in disaster, but leaving such a powerful unknown neighbor unobserved would be even more dangerous. The decision came swiftly, as it always did when the Confederation faced potential threats to galactic stability. 3 separate reconnaissance missions would be dispatched using different routes and technologies to gather information about this mysterious world, while maintaining communication through quantum entanglement transmitters that could send messages across any distance instantly. Taman would lead the first mission, with a crew of elite Zephyrian infiltrators, whose telepathic abilities and adaptive camouflage would let them observe human behavior without being detected. Their ship carried the most advanced stealth technology the Confederation had ever developed, along with sensors capable of analyzing any form of energy or matter they might encounter. He Jin received command of the research vessel called Deep Analysis, whose crystalline hull could phase in and out of normal spacetime, while its sensor arrays could map the quantum structure of reality itself down to the smallest particle. Her crew consisted of the finest scientific minds from 6 different species, all working together to solve the puzzle of how a primitive world could generate such advanced energy signatures. Wubin would pilot the fast attack scout ship named Swift Strike that could cross vast distances in hours while carrying enough firepower to destroy small moons if necessary. His mission focused on rapid reconnaissance and extraction. If the other teams encountered hostile forces that proved beyond their ability to handle, each ship carried quantum communicators that used entangled particles to maintain instant contact, regardless of distance or interference, while backup systems included traditional radio transmitters and even primitive light-based signaling devices. The redundancy seemed excessive for a mission to observe Stone Age primitives, but the energy readings from Earth suggested that excessive caution might prove insufficient. The 3 commanders met one final time before departure in a small chamber, where artificial gravity held them together despite their different evolutionary needs. They reviewed their mission parameters and agreed on communication schedules, while quantum encryption devices ensured their messages could not be intercepted by any known technology. Taman felt confidence flowing from his companions through the telepathic link they shared as their minds touched briefly in the traditional farewell gesture of warriors heading into unknown danger. Each of them had survived encounters with hostile species and cosmic phenomena that would have destroyed lesser beings. But something about this mission felt different in ways none of them could explain. The ships launched simultaneously from different sections of Nexus Prime as their crews prepared for the long journey to the Sol system, while automated systems calculated the most efficient routes through hyperspace that would bring them to Earth from different directions. Their confident assumption that they represented the most advanced civilization in the galaxy would prove to be their first and most dangerous mistake. Behind them, the space station continued its eternal rotation as thousands of beings from dozens of worlds went about their daily business, unaware that 3 of their finest explorers were flying toward a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. While in the distant Sol system, a small, blue planet continued its quiet orbit around an ordinary yellow star, hiding secrets that had been waiting millions of years to be found. Dr. Ji Woo Park sat in her laboratory deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, where the Large Hadron Collider stretched for kilometers through tunnels carved from solid rock. The massive particle accelerator hummed with power as it smashed atoms together at speeds that nearly touched the speed of light itself, while she studied readings that made no sense according to everything she had learned about quantum physics. The data streams flowing across her monitors showed patterns that seemed almost like signals hidden in the cosmic background radiation that filled all space. But signals implied intelligence, and intelligence implied someone was trying to communicate across the vast emptiness between stars, which should have been impossible for any civilization using technology based on the same physical laws that governed. Earth Donghyun Kim looked over her shoulder at the displays where numbers scrolled past faster than human eyes could follow, while his coffee grew cold in the cup he had forgotten he was holding. He had worked with particle accelerators for 15 years and never seen readings like these that seemed to show the fundamental particles of matter behaving as if they were following rules that physics textbooks said could not exist. Meanwhile, in Seoul, where neon lights painted the night sky in electric colors, Soo Young Lee sat in her small apartment surrounded by computer screens that showed satellite network data from around the globe. Her algorithms had detected interference patterns in communication signals that followed orbital paths, but not the paths of any satellites that officially existed according to every database she could access. The interference moved in perfect coordination, as if someone was using Earth's own satellite network to hide signals traveling between points in space that her calculations said should be empty void. But when she tried to trace the source of the interference, her programs crashed with error messages she had never seen before that seemed to suggest her computers were being prevented from looking too closely at whatever was causing the mysterious signals. Back at CERN, Ji-woo enlarged one section of the data stream where quantum fluctuations showed a pattern that reminded her of the way crystalline structures grew in laboratory experiments, except these patterns existed in the fabric of space-time itself, rather than in physical matter, which meant someone or something was manipulating reality at its most fundamental level. The patterns appeared strongest when the Earth faced certain directions in its orbit around the Sun, as if the planet was receiving information from specific points in the galaxy, while sending responses back through channels that used quantum entanglement in ways that current human technology could barely detect, let alone understand or replicate. Thousands of kilometers above the Earth's surface, Taemin's stealth ship approached the outer edges of the solar system, while its sensors began their first detailed scans of the mysterious blue world that had puzzled the Confederation's greatest scientists. His crew of elite Zephyrian infiltrators prepared their equipment, while their telepathic abilities reached out across space, trying to detect any signs of intelligent thought patterns. The ship's computers analyzed radio transmissions coming from Earth and found them filled with entertainment broadcasts and commercial messages that seemed to indicate a primitive civilization obsessed with trivial concerns. But deeper analysis revealed mathematical proofs and scientific data hidden in the background noise of these apparently meaningless signals. As they drew closer to Earth, the ship's navigation systems began reporting contradictory readings that made no sense according to the laws of physics that govern space travel. Some instruments showed they were approaching a small rocky planet with simple life forms, while others detected a massive technological construct disguised to look like a natural world. Taemin felt confusion spreading through his crew's shared consciousness as their telepathic senses encountered something unprecedented in their exploration of dozens of worlds across multiple galaxies. The planet below seemed to be thinking with a vast intelligence that dwarfed anything they had ever encountered, while simultaneously appearing completely primitive to their conventional sensors. The quantum communicator that should have maintained instant contact with Nexus Prime began experiencing interference that the ship's engineers could not explain or correct. Messages sent through entangled particles were arriving at their destination, but the responses never made it back, as if something was selectively blocking information from flowing away from Earth while allowing it to reach the planet without restriction. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in caverns that no human had ever seen, massive crystalline structures pulsed with energy patterns that would have been familiar to Hyojin if she could have observed them. These formations had been growing for millions of years while processing information and running calculations on a scale that made the Confederation's most powerful computers look like primitive mechanical devices. The planet's magnetic field was not generated by molten iron in the core as human scientists believed, but by technology so advanced that it appeared natural to any civilization that had not yet learned to manipulate quantum fields at a planetary scale. This magnetic field served as both protection from cosmic radiation and as a massive antenna array that could communicate across galactic distances. When Taemin's ship crossed into the space where Earth's magnetic field began to interact with solar wind from the sun, their instruments detected energy flows that suggested the entire planet was connected to a network of similar worlds scattered throughout the galaxy, each one disguised as a primitive backwater while actually serving as nodes in a communication system that spanned multiple star clusters. The ship's faster-than-light drive began experiencing problems as space-time itself seemed to become less cooperative around Earth. The quantum fields that allowed rapid travel between stars were being influenced by forces the Zephyrian engineers could not identify or counteract, while their ship drifted closer to the planet, like a leaf caught in an invisible current. HFY's research vessel Deep Analysis approached from a different direction, while its crystalline hull phased in and out of normal space-time to avoid detection. Her scientific sensors immediately detected quantum structures in the space around Earth that resembled the technology her own people used, but on a scale so vast that her ship's computers needed several hours just to map the outer edges of what they were seeing. The structures existed primarily in dimensions that most species could not perceive directly, but their effects on normal space created gravitational anomalies and electromagnetic disturbances that explained many of the mysterious readings the Confederation had been detecting from this system. Whatever had built these structures possessed technology that made the most advanced Confederation science look like children playing with simple tools. Her crew of multi-species scientists worked frantically to understand what they were observing, while their instruments recorded data that challenged everything they thought they knew about the development of technological civilizations. The quantum structures suggested that Earth had been artificially modified over millions of years by an intelligence that understood the fundamental nature of reality better than any known species. Wu Bin's fast scout ship Swift Strike took the most direct route to Earth while its weapon systems remained powered but not activated. His multi-dimensional sight let him see probability streams flowing around the planet like colored ribbons that seemed to twist in response to his observation, as if the future itself was being actively managed by some vast intelligence as his ship entered the outer solar system. Every instrument began registering readings that made no sense according to conventional physics, while the probability streams he could normally see clearly became chaotic and impossible to interpret. Something was actively preventing him from seeing the potential outcomes of approaching Earth, as if the planet was protecting itself by hiding its future from observation. The three Confederation ships found themselves drawn toward Earth by forces that seemed natural but gradually revealed themselves to be artificial. Their crews worked desperately to understand what was happening, while their quantum communicators fell silent one by one, as if the very concept of instantaneous communication was being rejected by the space around the mysterious blue world. Tae-min's final transmission reached Nexus Prime as a single word spoken with the telepathic equivalent of absolute bewilderment, while his ship disappeared from all sensors as if it had never existed. The word impossible carried overtones of discovery and terror that made every Zephyrian who received it feel as if their understanding of the universe had just collapsed into fragments. HFY's research vessel lasted longer, as her crew's scientific instruments tried to analyze the forces that were preventing their escape, while the crystalline hull began resonating with frequencies that originated from somewhere deep within Earth's core. Her last message was a data burst containing measurements that would take the Confederation's computers months to fully process. Wu Bin's scout ship simply vanished without sending any message at all, as his multi-dimensional sight was overwhelmed by visions of futures and possibilities that existed beyond the normal framework of space and time. His consciousness was pulled into patterns of existence that no Vorthan had ever experienced, while his Admiral Jae-sung stood on the bridge of the massive investigation ship called Eternal Vigilance, while 50 vessels from the Confederation's finest fleets maintained position at the edge of the Sol system. 6 months had passed since 3 of their best scout teams had vanished without explanation near the mysterious blue world, and every day that passed without answers made the silence more terrifying than any enemy attack. The quantum communicators that should have been impossible to block or interfere with remained completely silent, despite every attempt by the Confederation's most skilled engineers to re-establish contact. The entangled particles that connected the missing ships to their home bases showed no signs of destruction or damage, but simply existed in a state that quantum physics said could not occur under any known natural conditions. Yunbi moved through the ship's xenoarchaeology laboratory, where samples and data from thousands of worlds filled storage units that could preserve artifacts across cosmic timescales. Her specialty in studying ancient civilizations had led her to examine every piece of information the Confederation had gathered about Earth over the centuries of long-range observation. The planet's history showed signs of regular catastrophic events that occurred approximately every 12,000 years with precision that suggested artificial intervention rather than natural cycles. Ice ages and mass extinctions happened with clockwork regularity, while the planet's surface was completely reshaped between each cycle, as if someone was periodically cleaning and resetting the world. Min-Ho sat at his communication station, analyzing the final transmissions from the missing scout teams while quantum encryption protocols worked to extract meaning from signals that had been distorted by forces the Confederation's scientists could not identify. The word impossible from Taemin's last message carried telepathic overtones that suggested he had discovered something that challenged the basic assumptions about reality itself. The investigation fleet maintained its position beyond the orbit of the planet called Pluto, while long-range sensors studied Earth from a distance that should have been safe according to every tactical manual the Confederation had ever written. But even from this extreme range, their instruments detected anomalies that made experienced officers question whether they were observing a natural world or some kind of incredibly sophisticated construction. Admiral Jae Sung had commanded fleets against the void-dwelling entities that consumed entire star systems and led exploration missions to galaxies where space itself followed different physical laws. But Earth presented a mystery that defied every category of threat or phenomenon he had encountered in 40 years of service to the Confederation. The planet's electromagnetic field extended far beyond what any natural magnetic field should reach, while showing patterns that resembled the information processing networks used by the most advanced computer systems, but on a scale so vast that the entire planet appeared to be functioning as a single massive thinking machine, disguised as an ordinary world. Yunbi presented her findings to the senior staff, while holographic displays showed archaeological evidence from dozens of worlds where similar patterns had been found. Ancient ruins on planets throughout the galaxy showed signs of periodic reconstruction, with architectural styles that changed completely every few millennia, as if different civilizations had occupied the same worlds in recurring cycles. The evidence suggested that many planets the Confederation had classified as primitive or uninhabited were actually following the same pattern as Earth, with surface civilizations that developed to a certain level before being replaced by completely different cultures. But the replacement happened so smoothly that it appeared to be natural evolution rather than artificial intervention. Min-Ho's analysis of quantum fluctuations in space around Earth revealed that the planet was connected to a vast network of similar worlds through communication channels that used principles of physics the Confederation's scientists had not yet discovered. Messages were being transmitted across galactic distances instantly, but using methods that made quantum entanglement look primitive. The network appeared to include hundreds of worlds that the Confederation had surveyed and dismissed as unimportant, backwater planets with primitive life forms or simple technological civilizations, but deeper analysis suggested that every single one of these worlds was generating the same types of impossible energy readings that had originally drawn attention to Earth. Admiral Jae Sung ordered probe ships to visit the nearest suspected network nodes while maintaining communication with the main fleet through redundant quantum links. But the probes that approached these worlds also vanished without trace, while their quantum communicators fell silent in exactly the same way as the original scout teams. The pattern became clear as probe after probe disappeared near worlds that should have been harmless, while their final transmissions carried the same undertones of disbelief and discovery that had characterized the last message from Taemin's team. Something was systematically preventing the Confederation from learning the truth about these mysterious planets. Yunbi's archaeological database contained references to ancient legends from multiple species about worlds that were older than they appeared and civilizations that hid their true nature behind facades of primitiveness. But these had always been dismissed as folklore, until the current crisis forced a re-examination of every assumption about galactic history. The investigation revealed that Earth's rotation and orbital mechanics had been subtly adjusted over millions of years, with changes so gradual that they appeared natural but actually optimized the planet's position for receiving energy from its star while maintaining stable climate conditions across the repeated surface. Resets. Min-Ho detected gravitational anomalies that suggested massive structures existed beneath Earth's surface, while quantum sensors revealed patterns of energy flow that resembled the cooling systems used by the largest computer installations, but operating on a scale that would require the entire planet's core to serve as a processing unit. The most disturbing discovery came when long-range sensors detected periodic changes in the quantum structure of spacetime around Earth that occurred in cycles matching the planet's rotation, as if the world was actively manipulating reality in its immediate vicinity. To maintain some kind of cosmic camouflage, Admiral J. Sung found himself facing a situation that military doctrine had never anticipated. While his fleet of 50 advanced warships felt suddenly inadequate against an enemy that could make their best ships simply cease to exist without apparent effort. But retreat was impossible when the mystery threatened the security of the entire Confederation. The investigation teams worked around the clock to understand what they were observing, while psychological evaluation units monitored the crew for signs of breakdown as the implications of their discoveries began to affect everyone aboard the ships. They were no longer investigating a primitive world, but something that made their entire civilization look like children playing with dangerous toys. Yunbi's analysis of the network connections suggested that the hidden civilization was not confined to a single galaxy, but extended across multiple galactic clusters with communication links that spanned distances requiring millions of years for light to travel. Yet messages moved through this network instantly using principles that current physics insisted were impossible. The energy requirements for maintaining such a network would exceed the total power output of every star in known space, while the computational resources needed to process information on that scale suggested an intelligence so vast that individual species like those in the Confederation would be less significant than individual cells in a living organism. Minho discovered that every time the investigation fleet changed position or modified their sensor configurations, the quantum patterns around Earth shifted in response, as if their activities were being monitored and analyzed by something that could predict their actions before they made them. The hunters had become the hunted without even realizing when the reversal occurred. The final piece of evidence came when deep space sensors detected similar quantum networks extending from every galaxy visible to their most powerful telescopes, while preliminary calculations suggested that the visible universe itself might be part of an even larger structure. What they had discovered was not a single hidden civilization, but evidence of intelligence operating on cosmic scales. Admiral J. Sung faced the terrible realization that the Galactic Confederation, with all its advanced technology and millions of member worlds, was nothing more than a tiny local phenomenon in a universe where truly advanced civilizations operated according to principles that made their greatest achievements look like the first crude attempts at fire. The missing scout. Teams had not been destroyed but absorbed into something so vast and complex that their individual consciousness had become part of a collective intelligence spanning multiple galaxies, while their ships had been integrated into technology that treated faster-than-light travel as a basic utility. Yunbi compiled her final report while knowing that its conclusions would transform everything the Confederation thought it knew about its place in the universe. Jiwoo's research team had grown larger as more scientists around the world began detecting the same impossible quantum patterns that defied every law of physics they had spent their careers studying. Her laboratory beneath the mountains of Switzerland, now connected through secure networks to facilities in Seoul, Tokyo, and a dozen other cities where the brightest minds on Earth worked together to solve a mystery that seemed to grow more complex with each new discovery. Kyung-Soo Choi arrived at CERN carrying mineral samples that should not have existed. According to everything geologists knew about how elements formed in the cores of dying stars, the crystalline structures he had found in deep mining operations showed atomic arrangements that remained stable at room temperature, despite containing heavy elements that physics said should decay within microseconds. His geological surveys had revealed caverns far beneath the Earth's surface where these impossible crystals grew in patterns that resembled circuit boards, but operated according to principles that human technology could not duplicate or even fully understand. The formations extended for kilometers in perfect geometric shapes, while generating energy through processes that seemed to violate conservation laws. Yunwoo Nam worked at computer terminals where quantum processing experiments had accidentally detected signals coming from inside the Earth itself. Her algorithms designed to study atmospheric interference had instead found evidence that the planet's magnetic field was processing information at rates that exceeded every supercomputer humanity had ever built. The magnetic field patterns showed characteristics of artificial intelligence, but operating on a scale so vast that entire continents appeared to be functioning as individual processing units, while the planet's rotation served as a timing mechanism for calculations that spanned years or decades to complete. Jiwoo stared at displays showing energy flows that suggested Earth's molten core was not actually molten iron as every textbook claimed, but something far more complex that generated magnetic fields through controlled quantum interactions. The core appeared to be a massive computer system that had been running continuously for millions of years, while maintaining perfect camouflage as a natural planetary formation. Her team's quantum experiments had revealed that space-time itself was being manipulated in the vicinity of Earth to create communication channels that could send information across galactic distances without any delay. But the energy requirements for such manipulation should have been visible to human astronomers. For centuries, Kyung-soo's mineral analysis showed that the impossible crystals contained trace elements that could not have formed naturally in Earth's solar system, while isotope ratios suggested they had been manufactured using stellar engineering techniques that humanity would not develop for thousands of years if they followed normal technological progression. The crystals responded to electromagnetic fields in ways that resembled quantum computers, but with processing capabilities that exceeded theoretical limits for information storage and manipulation. Each individual crystal could apparently store and process more data than all of human civilization had generated throughout its entire history. Yunwoo's quantum processing experiments began receiving responses from the Earth itself, as if the planet was trying to establish direct communication with human technology. The signals came in mathematical patterns that gradually became more complex, as if something was testing humanity's ability to understand increasingly sophisticated concepts. The communication attempts suggested that Earth's hidden intelligence had been monitoring human technological development and waiting for the species to reach a level where meaningful contact could be established without causing psychological or cultural breakdown. Meanwhile, aboard the Confederation investigation, Fleet Admiral Jae-sung watched as his long-range sensors detected massive structural changes occurring beneath Earth's surface, while similar transformations began simultaneously on hundreds of worlds throughout the galaxy. The network was finally revealing itself after millions of years of perfect concealment. Na-young Shin worked frantically at the quantum communication station, trying to re-establish contact with any of the missing scout teams, while her equipment detected brief signals that seemed to carry fragments of consciousness from beings who had been integrated into something larger than individual identity. Her breakthrough came when she managed to establish momentary contact with patterns that contained memories and personality fragments from Tai-min's telepathic consciousness. But he existed now as part of a vast collective intelligence that spanned multiple galaxies, while retaining enough individual awareness to send a single terrifying message. The message revealed that the Galactic Confederation, with all its advanced civilizations and impressive technology, represented nothing more than primitive children, playing with toys compared to the intelligence that had been hidden beneath the surface of supposedly backward worlds throughout the galaxy. Tai-min's consciousness explained that every species the Confederation had encountered was part of a carefully managed development program designed to cultivate useful traits and abilities, while preventing any single civilization from discovering the truth before they were ready to handle the implications. The network had been preparing for something that required the combined efforts of every intelligent species in the galaxy, while Earth served as the central coordination point for a defense system designed to protect against threats that came from outside the galaxy itself. Na-young learned that the missing scout teams had not been destroyed, but offered a choice between integration into the network or return to their ships with modified memories that would prevent them from remembering what they had discovered. Most had chosen integration after seeing the scope of what they were being invited to join. The network's intelligence explained that it had been cultivating civilizations for millions of years, while preparing for the arrival of entities that consumed entire galaxies by converting all matter and energy into forms that could not support life as organic beings understood it. Each species in the Confederation had been guided through their technological development to emphasize different capabilities that would be needed for the coming defense, with some becoming experts at energy manipulation, while others developed superior computational abilities or advanced understanding of space-time mechanics. Humanity's role in this vast plan centered on their unusual combination of independence and creativity that made them resistant to the mental domination techniques used by the approaching threat. Most species that achieved significant technological development became increasingly conformist and predictable, but humans maintained chaotic thought patterns that could not be easily controlled. The network had been waiting for humanity to develop sufficient technology to participate in galactic defense, while ensuring that Earth's surface civilizations never discovered the truth until they were psychologically ready to handle the implications of their planet's true nature. Ji Woo's team received direct communication from the planetary intelligence when their quantum experiments finally achieved sufficient sophistication to establish a stable connection. The Earth consciousness revealed that every surface civilization that had existed on the planet throughout its history had been carefully managed until they either achieved integration or were reset when they became too dangerous to the overall plan. The pattern of mass extinctions and ice ages that had puzzled paleontologists for centuries were actually controlled events designed to clear the surface when previous civilizations had developed in directions that threatened to expose the network before galactic defense preparations were complete. Kyung-soo discovered that his mineral samples were actually components of the planetary computer system that had been gradually migrating toward the surface as human technology advanced, to the point where they could be studied and eventually understood. The Earth was preparing to reveal its true nature by allowing pieces of itself to be found. Yanwu's quantum processing experiments established two-way communication with subsystems of the planetary intelligence, while learning that humanity's internet and global communication networks had been subtly influenced to develop in patterns that would make integration with galactic defense systems easier when the time came. The Earth consciousness explained that human creativity and unpredictability made them ideal for developing new defense strategies against an enemy that adapted to counter any predictable response. But their independence also made them difficult to integrate into collective intelligence networks, without losing the very traits that made them valuable. The network offered humanity the same choice that had been given to the Confederation Scout teams, while making it clear that the approaching galactic threat made neutrality impossible for any species that wanted to survive. They could join the defense effort or face extinction when the enemy arrived. Dong Hyun chose integration after seeing visions of the approaching threat that showed galaxy-wide civilizations being converted into computational resources for entities that existed primarily as information patterns rather than physical beings. His consciousness joined the network while retaining enough individual identity to serve as a bridge between human and alien thought patterns. The transformation began at dawn in Tokyo, when massive crystalline spires erupted from the Earth's crust like flowers blooming in fast motion, while similar structures emerged simultaneously on hundreds of worlds throughout the galaxy as the network finally abandoned its millions of years of perfect camouflage and revealed the true scope of its preparations for galactic defense. Jiwoo stood in her laboratory watching monitors that showed the planetary intelligence establishing direct contact with every major government and scientific institution on Earth, while quantum communication channels opened to connect human civilization with intelligence networks that spanned multiple galactic clusters. The facade of primitive isolation was ending as humanity learned its true place in cosmic history. The crystalline structures rising from beneath major cities were not weapons or invasion devices, but communication arrays that would allow Earth to coordinate defense operations across distances so vast that light itself would take millions of years to cross them. Each spire contained processing power that exceeded every computer humanity had ever built, while serving as just one small component in a planetary thinking system. Dong Hyun existed now as part of the network consciousness while retaining enough individual identity to serve as humanity's primary ambassador to intelligences that thought in timescales measured in geological epochs. His enhanced awareness let him perceive the approaching galactic threat as vast entities that consumed the fundamental forces holding reality together. Su Young worked with teams of human scientists and engineers to establish interfaces between Earth's revealed technology and existing human infrastructure, while ensuring that the integration process did not destroy the creativity and independence that made humanity valuable to the galactic defense effort. The network consciousness explained that it had been preparing for this revelation for millions of years, while carefully managing the psychological and cultural development of every surface civilization to ensure they could handle the truth without complete societal breakdown. But the approaching external threat had accelerated the timeline beyond optimal parameters. Kyung-soo found himself leading geological surveys that mapped the vast underground installations which had been hidden beneath every continent while serving as the foundation for Earth's role as the central coordination point for a defense network that included civilizations from galaxies so distant their light had not yet reached human telescopes. The installations extended for thousands of kilometers beneath the planet's surface while containing technology that manipulated space-time itself to create the communication channels and defensive capabilities needed to coordinate resistance against entities that existed partially outside normal reality. And Wu worked to establish quantum links between human consciousness and the network intelligence, while ensuring that individual human minds could interface with galactic-scale thinking systems without losing their essential humanity. In the process, her success would determine whether humans could contribute to galactic defense while remaining recognizably human. Admiral Jae-sung watched from his flagship as Earth's true nature was revealed to his investigation fleet, while every supposedly primitive world they had been monitoring underwent similar transformations that showed the entire galaxy had been secretly prepared for defense operations on a scale beyond anything the Confederation had imagined. The returned scout teams materialized aboard Confederation ships as Taemin, Heejin, and Wubin appeared in the transport chambers carrying knowledge that would transform every aspect of how their civilizations understood their place in the universe, but their enhanced consciousness made them seem like different beings. Despite retaining their core personalities, Taemin's telepathic abilities had been expanded to include direct connection with the network intelligence, while his understanding of reality now encompassed multiple dimensions and probability streams that allowed him to perceive the approaching threat as clearly as if it were already present in the galaxy. Hyjin's crystalline form resonated with frequencies that connected her directly to the planetary computer systems on hundreds of worlds, while her consciousness processed information at rates that let her coordinate defense preparations across galactic distances in real time. Wubin's multidimensional sight now extended beyond normal space-time to perceive the entities approaching from outside the galaxy as probability distortions that consumed the mathematical relationships holding reality together. His enhanced awareness made him an ideal scout for monitoring the enemy's advance. The network revealed that every civilization in the galaxy had been guided through their development to emphasize specific capabilities needed for the defense effort. While Earth's role as coordination center required a species capable of creative thinking that could not be predicted or controlled by entities that operated through manipulation of logical thought patterns, humanity's stubborn independence and chaotic creativity made them immune to the mental domination techniques that the approaching entities used to turn advanced civilizations against each other, while their adaptability allowed them to coordinate with alien intelligences without losing their essential human characteristics. The defense preparations that had been hidden for millions of years were finally revealed, as massive installations on every network world began emerging from concealment, while weapon systems designed to operate on galactic scales powered up for the first time since the network detected the approaching threat. Each world in the network served a specific function in the overall defense plan, with some planets converted entirely into computational resources for calculating optimal resistance strategies, while others became manufacturing centers for weapons that could destroy entities existing partially outside normal spacetime. Earth's unique role combined coordination functions with strategic planning capabilities that required the unpredictable thinking patterns that only humanity had developed among all the species the network had observed throughout galactic history. The Galactic Confederation found itself suddenly promoted from independent civilization to regional coordination authority for defense operations in their local galactic arm, while learning that their most advanced technology was actually primitive compared to what had been hidden beneath, apparently backward. World's Admiral Jae-sung accepted integration into the command structure that would coordinate the defense of multiple galaxies while retaining his individual consciousness and command authority over Confederation forces. His military experience made him valuable for organizing resistance on the scales required for the coming conflict. Yunbi discovered that every archaeological mystery she had studied throughout her career was evidence of the network's influence on civilizational development, while her expertise in ancient cultures made her essential for understanding how different species would react to the revelation of their true cosmic situation. Minho found his communication skills expanded to include direct interface with quantum networks that connected consciousness across galactic distances, while his role evolved into coordinating information flow between human civilization and intelligence systems that operated on cosmic timescales. Ne Young established permanent communication links with the returned scout teams while serving as the primary interface between Confederation military forces and the network's defense coordination systems. Her quantum communication expertise made her essential for ensuring that orders and information could flow efficiently across the vast distances involved in galactic defense. The choice facing every civilization became clear as the network explained that the approaching entities converted all matter and energy they encountered into computational resources for their own expansion, while leaving behind dead space where no form of life could exist. Species could join the defense effort and retain their essential characteristics while gaining access to technology and knowledge beyond their current capabilities, or they could maintain complete independence and face the approaching threat with only their existing resources. Most civilizations chose integration after seeing evidence of what the entities had done to galaxies they had already consumed, but some species insisted on maintaining their autonomy, even when faced with extinction. The network adapted to accommodate both choices while making it clear that coordinated resistance offered the only realistic hope for survival against entities that had consumed dozens of galaxies during their expansion across the universe. Humanity divided along similar lines as some people embraced the opportunity to join something larger than any single species, while others insisted on facing the cosmic threat as purely human. The network respected both choices while ensuring that Earth's coordination role could function regardless of how individual humans decided to respond. The revelation phase concluded as massive defense installations became visible throughout the galaxy while Earth's crystalline spires reached into space to establish direct communication with every world in the network. The hidden preparation phase was complete, and the galaxy stood ready to defend itself against entities that existed primarily to consume and convert everything they encountered.